Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Voluntary Virtues After Hours show. My name is Robert Kruger. I'm your host. I've got Urnaz here. He is going to continue the discussion that we were having on the roundtable. Just to quick recap as to what's going on. Urnaz is a objectivist, a follower of the Ayn Rand philosophy. He supports laissez-faire capitalism and a minarchist government. And he's actually debated and discussed the concept on various Dutch websites, and even has appeared on Danish national television.
No, Dutch national television.
Sorry, Dutch.
Yeah.
Dutch national television to discuss objectivism. So the thing that we seem to be disagreeing on is that. Whether we call a government a business or a government is kind of moot. I mean, as long as the effect is the same, it doesn't really matter. So the critical point is then you're in favor of the idea that somebody who is wanting to have this particular service of arbitration be voluntarily able to fund or not fund that particular service. If they're not satisfied with it, they can defund it.
Sure.
But for some reason, you don't subscribe to the idea that they could actually potentially choose to defund one and fund another one at the same time, at the same moment in time. They would actually have to wait for a ripple effect from around the entire community for everybody else to get around to doing it too, in order for them to switch services from one to another. Is that correct?
Well, like we said, like those things, like if you're talking about you offering a certain service and it's so much better than that of the governments, like the ripple effect is probably there. Like the whole fact that you could even have the idea to have this competing business would be the ripple effect. You know, so isn't that like begging the question? Like
No,
I don't know.
Not at all. Look. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that our arbitration services are being they're currently being done by, I don't know, let's say this company called Republicans.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this other company comes along and they're called Democrats. And there's a lot of people who really like the idea of having Democrats be their government. And there's a lot of other people who really like the idea of having Republicans be their government. Now, if there's a 51% of the population who are willing to fund, 51% of the funders, as far as the amount of money, being willing to be donated, that are coming from the "we like Democrats," then apparently the Democrats are now government, and the people who are the 49%. They are screwed, or they can secede, according to you.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Okay. Now, if they secede, though, what if they're all like intermixed amongst the other people? Okay, like my dad is a Republican and my mom is a Democrat. Now, if he and all the other Republicans want to secede and have a different government that they are assigning as the Republican government for them, but they're under the same house, the same roof, there's no real border here. I mean, you're not going to make them all move to change, to change their governments, are you?
Well, I don't know. If this is a difficult one though, because has this happened? Like, if you look at history, if you look at like North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, or like Germany. If you look at East Germany and West Germany, like definitely the people in East Germany were willing to come to West Germany to experience the freedom. Like they were stopped by East Germany. Okay. So I would say, if you would call the West Germans like the good guys, right? Like the pro-freedom guys. I think people, when the choice is freedom or oppression, they will definitely go to where the freedom is.
I'm not going to let you get off that easy.
I know. I wasn't like, this is not the answer. I know, but like, so.
Say it's just an aesthetic difference. That's all it is an aesthetic difference. It's a matter of, well, their funding is, I don't know, using some different methodology, and the way that it is run is slightly different. But
Yeah.
it's significant enough that there is, there are two different camps, and they're actually somewhat opinionated about it. Just because of their parents were like that or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is that you wouldn't require that if it's a voluntary service, if it's a voluntary arrangement between you and your government, that if 49% of the population wants this one and 51% wants that one, that you wouldn't have to have the 49% move to a totally different section of the country and take it over to secede. Is that too much to ask?
I'm I'm really thinking, because if you're talking about these kinds of numbers, there would have to be like power bases, right, in the country. Like there would have to be like areas where there are more Republicans or more Democrats.
Well, maybe
Like,
not. They might
yeah,
just
okay, yeah,
the
it's possible that it's really
internet
like,
thing. It's an internet phenomenon.
okay,
In
well,
fact, I'll actually give
yeah,
you a real here's the real contention. Actually, let's just say that the ones that are the Republicans, um, they are in favor of enforcing what's it called, alimony,
yeah, yeah,
and the other group thinks that alimony is indentured servitude and will not accept it.
okay, that's a good example, yeah,
Okay, so if there's a contractual agreement to alimony, both sides are okay with it.
okay, yeah,
But one group says it's automatically guaranteed if you are married to somebody and you're the non-breadwinner. The breadwinner must maintain the lifestyle that you're used to if they leave you.
yes, okay, I get it, yeah,
So this is being broken down. It seems like almost entirely by gender.
yeah.
Men don't like it. Women do.
I know, yeah.
And so then the men say we want to voluntarily fund this particular one, and we've got 48% of the population is men and 52% is women. And let's say 60% of both sides are willing to fund whichever government it is that they want. So you've got basically the same numbers across the board. It's 52% versus 48%. So at this point, obviously you can't have all the men move to one side of the country and all the women move to the other. And so you're going to have to, accept the fact that your government does not require you to have a specific border around it if it's a voluntary choice. If you can secede and adopt a new government as a voluntary choice, you don't have to move. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you've got the idea that a border is not related to the concept of having a voluntary government. You with me so far?
Yeah, but I think there are some practical issues still. Like, I can kind of get how you can get a lot of services through the internet, but like I think like the advantage of borders is that it's really like clearly defined where what rules apply. Like that's a real big advantage for
Oh, sure.
everyone in the country. So that's why I'm not gonna go and say I want to get rid of borders. Like I get sometimes the arbitrariness of borders, sure, but I think the advantage of having like
Makes it easy.
demarcated areas is like really enormous for the protection of individual rights. Like the fact that this applies here, this stops here, jurisdiction ends here. I think
Right.
that has a lot of advantages.
Okay. Now, obviously, if you are on the border between Canada and America, for example, and you look around, there's all these trees that have been cut down and so on. And so there's actually the demarcation line. You can see that they've actually cut down all the trees so that it's absolutely clear this is Canada, that's America. Even though it doesn't actually follow the line that's on the map, it
Yeah.
actually goes zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. But as a general rule, we got an idea. Okay. But realistically, this is just a convenience, and it actually is not necessary for, um, if other systems are used. Let's say, for example, if you go into a store and the store has a sign up on the side that says, um, you know, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, they've declared that what their rules are.
Yeah.
Okay, and with the advancements in technology that we have, we could certainly even set it up so that you could use your cell phone to basically go pull up the rules that are related to this particular interaction or the piece of property that you're on. Um, so technological advancements has made the potential for not having rules be based upon a physical border, but more along the lines of, I mean, it still would be a physical border in certain respects, but you could actually have a much greater amount of differing borders.
Yeah,
Like
because also the issue of security comes in place. I mean, it makes way more sense to draw a border and say we can protect these people than to say, well, this is a big piece of land and like we got 5 million of our guys in there, so we're just gonna like circle around with our jet
yeah,
fighters when they are like in trouble. So like I think you're taking like your
well, it's
this
certainly easier, and
yeah.
that would actually obviously it does tend to create situations where if you're dealing with defense, for example,
Yeah, yeah.
like military type, defense against a foreign country.
Yes.
Um, there is definitely a benefit to having a coalition that is along the line where the other country is, and not necessarily just have this dot 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 all around in these various different pockets.
Yeah, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So practicality will resolve that. Okay. So, but in other cases, like when it comes to um, whether um, whether your disagreements will be handled by Judge Judy or by Judge Thomas. There's
Yeah,
you know
okay, you're right. Yeah.
if you happen to be in Bernalillo County, then you get this county judge, and so on. So that the level of that you can actually be very, very small. You can actually say, all right, well, it's even down to the point of every single property owner gets to can pick whichever one that they wanted to use, and if you're on their property, you know which one it is because you can pull it up on your cell phone and you say, all right, well, this the arbitration for situations here is handled by Judge Judy, and then if you
Yeah, okay,
travel,
but rules are not laws, right? I mean, we have the right not to sell to anyone, does not violate rights. So
right, right, right,
it's not an issue of law then.
right. What
It's
what
an
I'm
issue of
saying is,
permission. Yeah.
yeah, what I'm saying is that in the case of arbitration, especially when it comes to like as you agreed with the merchant law thing, you could see that those types of negotiations could determine an arbitrator very simply, very very easily. But when it comes to criminal law, then we start to run into different issues.
I
Okay,
get it. Yeah.
yeah. Now, here is my response as far as objective law to how I address objective law, in this concept. Um, if someone establishes that they do not respect someone else's right to self-ownership or self-control, self-decidership. I know that a lot of people hate the term ownership, but it's actually, it's just an easy way of saying it. But really, it's the final art. They get to make the final decision as to what happens with their body.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
I agree.
so if you have a person who violates someone else's body and uses it in a way that that other person does not accept, they have created a template as to how rules work, and they've illustrated a implicit consent to have anything of a similar nature done to them. Reciprocity.
Hmm.
Okay, so a person who has indicated that they do not respect someone else's right to decide what happens with their body has indicated that they do not expect to have a right to control what happens with their own body. They've given implicit consent to every single tattoo artist who would like to experiment with their drawings on their skin. They've given implicit consent to every sadomasochist who would like to test out their whips or chains or whatever it is that they want on this person's body. They've given implicit consent to every hairstylist who would like to practice, and so on. Drug manufacturers who would like to test their drugs on a person to see what the side effects are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so at this moment, this person is now prime opportunity for having all sorts of bad stuff happen to them that they don't want to have happen. And this is objectively true, right? That they've made a statement about what their expectations of self-ownership are, and to be consistent, it has to be reciprocated.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, obviously you have to have proven that this is the case. And anyone can, go to the point where they say, all right, well, this is something that we can objectively prove that this did happen. We've got semen, we've got hair follicles, we've got blood underneath the nails, we've got bruising and all these different things that can objectively show that this has actually happened. Now, the person can go to an arbitrator and they can have a discussion as to how to deal with this situation. They say, all right, she says that he raped her. He says, I'm not going to your judge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to any judge that you pick, period. Well, then what happens is that there are people who are going to be mean-spirited jerks that are out there who are going to go after vigilante justice. And they will take him and strap him down and tattoo rapist on his forehead. Okay?
That's possible, yeah.
Okay, they will inject him with all sorts of pathogens or hallucinogens or whatever it is to make his life a living hell because, they're really pissed off about the fact that they messed with a friend of theirs. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's already given implicit consent to this, so there's not been a violation of any sort of personal rights. Okay?
Because he's a rapist, you mean?
Because he already consented to have his body used in a way that he did not, he's no longer expecting to have control or license over his body anymore because he's indicated that he didn't expect that from anyone else when he raped.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. So at this point, then he goes, oh, wait, no, you're not going to tattoo me with, rapist on my forehead. And so he goes to a judge and he says, you've got to stop them. You've got to put somebody to stop them from coming to get me. And the judge says, well, you know what? You didn't want to use our courts. So, tough shit. Or he says, oh, wait, oh, fine. I'll go to court and I'll actually have the judge arbitrate between me and this woman. So he's pressured by the fact that there will be vigilante justice that will be done to him if he does not cooperate in the arbitration systems that exist. Okay?
But that's risking a lot. Like, I'm not saying this cannot happen, and I'm sure it will, but you're really trusting the culture a lot. So, because what if the guy didn't do it, right? Like, what if he didn't do it, but he feels his case is really weak, for instance, because he lives in a culture where 8 out of 10 guys who are arrested for rape get locked up. I don't know. There's so much more context to know. Just relying on vigilantes to pressure rapists into admitting guilt.
Okay, keep in mind. Yeah.
John, you guys know I was here. I want to say hi. I didn't know if you guys know I was here.
Yeah, I saw you.
You're creating a lot of
Okay.
background moving around, and your microphone's a bit sensitive. So if you can turn that down.
How about now?
Turn it up a little bit.
How about now?
Louder.
How about now?
Perfect.
That's better? Yeah, I got a different computer now, so sorry about that, guys.
That's all right. So the thing that's important about this this particular concept, Yarnas, is that it's a principled approach. It follows objective truths. Now, there is a lot of fear that happens when you start to talk about this idea of having roving bands of sadomasochists being your judgment system. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is all the preliminary understanding of how things are, justified objectively true. Okay, because it is an objective truth that a person who has violated another person's right to self-ownership has indicated that they do not expect self-ownership to be acknowledged for themselves because of the reciprocity and consistency of logic. Okay, logic consistency requires that that's how he views himself. Okay, so then the potential for that exists. Okay, the potential for that existence creates an incentive structure that is so overbearing that causes the person to have no choice but to go into an arbitration between himself and the victim.
Yeah, but you're assuming he's guilty, though.
Right. We've already found that he's guilty because of objective proof.
No, okay, but what I'm saying is, if he's not guilty, he can be, like, pressured into the same shit.
Right. Okay, we will deal with the innocence issue in a future point. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that, all right, he's guilty. He's objectively guilty. We have no doubt in our minds that he's objectively guilty.
Okay.
At this point, he has two options. One, he can approach the person who he offended, the rape victim, through himself or through negotiators, through whatever means to make the communication happen. Okay, he communicates an intent to make the person whole, so to speak.
Compensation,
Compensation. Okay. Now, during the course of this compensation negotiation, what happens is that the victim finally says, "Okay, we now have reached an acceptable amount of compensation. I will take your compensation, and upon receiving it, I will retroactively agree that the interaction with us was a voluntary one, not an involuntary one. I will give retroactive consent to the sexual encounter, thereby removing it from being an initiation of a coercive nature, violating another person's right of self-ownership, because the person who owns themselves has indicated that was now no longer a violation."
But that wouldn't be true. It would just be a technicality.
Well, if you, for example, stole my property and then I wanted to get compensated, and you gave me 2 times what it was worth, and I retroactively said, "All right, well then we made a trade."
Okay, but it's not really true. You know what I mean, right? Like, it didn't really happen. Like, you didn't really make a trade.
But you can actually retroactively, convert it into a trade by saying.
Okay, but it doesn't change that when the person took from you, it wasn't voluntary. Like that still remains the same, right?
Well,
like facts don't change.
As far as moving forward, it is now.
Okay, but the problem I have
at the time it wasn't.
Yeah. The problem I have with this, and especially when it comes to use of violence, so a little less when it comes to like not abiding by a contract and then compensating someone, is that if this girl like accepts whatever compensation the rapist has to offer her, and like does what you say she does, and this guy walks free,
how does that help the potential next victim?
Yeah. So what I'm
all right. So all we're doing now is dealing with the tort that is going on. Okay, so we're handling the initial part of the tort. Okay, that's
okay.
So the person has now been received an annulment of the "I'm okay with you doing anything you want to my body" rule. Okay, so now they don't have to worry about tattoo artists chasing them down and putting "rapist" on their forehead. Okay, that is one choice that they could take. Another choice that they could take is they could contact an institution that says, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that nobody comes into your home and tattoos rapist on your forehead. We've got guards, and they will make sure that none of that stuff happens to you. Okay, you're going to have to pay us a certain amount of money every month to give you residence in our particular facility. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put a whole bunch of bars around the walls to make sure that nobody can get in to get you. Okay? Now, Now what's happened is that the criminal is paying for their own prison sentence. Instead of having the victim and everybody else in the society paying for the criminal pays for it himself because he's got the incentive to do so.
Oh, but you're assuming in this scenario that like everybody knows he's a rapist in town.
Okay, we're just starting with one particular assumption. We're going down all the different potential assumptions that you can make because you got binary things that can occur. He's guilty. He's not guilty. He's provably guilty or not provably guilty. We go down each one. We have to address each one if we're going to deal with objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the case of the person who is objectively guilty, objectively provably guilty, and has not been able to obtain a retroactive consent, they are now in a situation where they have to make sure that they're going to try to make sure that they don't get screwed over by the roving bands of jerks, okay, who are going to take advantage of him. Which there certainly could be people who are like that. And there would be people who are actually enjoy the idea of hunting down somebody and doing stuff like that to them.
Yeah, sure.
But he finds a prison that he pays for, and he voluntarily puts himself into this prison to make sure that nobody can get to him. That's another option that he can use to get away from the big bad nasties. Another way that he can do that is to ostracize himself, to go off into the woods, build a cabin, hide. Right? Okay, in the latter two of those situations, we have now created a situation where the rapist is no longer amongst the community and can future harm other victims. But the third one, which is the case where the woman filed a claim of rape, he was found guilty, then they made a negotiation, and she retroactively reversed the decision of rape, mm-hmm. Right? This information still exists. The knowledge that this person is a rapist still exists, and every single person that is out there has the option of controlling their own property in a way that they see fit. And if you allowed a person who was priorly, was convicted of rape, but then created made a negotiation, excuse me, with the victim to make a retroactive consent thing, you're still putting them at risk if you allow that person on your property, and they can sue you for negligence if you allow a rapist onto your property while simultaneously not providing a certain level of security to protect the people that you're going to have on your property. So what you would see, in all likelihood, is that property owners would prohibit or ban the rapist from entering their property unless they had some sort of additional security measures to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the security measures could vary depending upon levels of technology. Maybe there is some sort of thing that they could wear around their neck that would cause them to immediately go catatonic if they became aroused. Whatever it may be.
But so where does your assumption come from that everyone can access these files? I mean, if the guy is guilty and he makes a deal with the girl and he said, "But please keep it all a secret. I got a reputation to take care of. Here's $10,000." Why would she spread it to the world? Why would her insurance company spread it to the world?
Utopia, dude.
I'm asking. Why do you assume?
No. I'm not assuming anything. That's perfectly possible. Absolutely.
Okay.
And a government doesn't get rid of that either.
Well, a government could have a sex offenders list, right?
Right, but if the woman doesn't go to report the crime, it never happened.
No, okay, that's so in every case. No matter what kind of state you're in. If a woman never says she's raped, nobody will ever know.
Right. And so if, let's say, we have to deal with where the differences are. Okay, and in the case of a government that has taxation, and the government is the monopoly of the arbitration for these particular things, what you will see is that there is no way for the criminal to end up being the burden, the burden of his incarceration be placed upon him rather than on everyone else.
Well, like, you still haven't talked about like the other girls being protected from
Right,
him.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the other girls being protected.
Can I jump in at all here, Robert?
Oh, sure, go for it.
I was having a hard time catching up, but I think I might have caught up by now. We're sort of on the necessity of the state with regards to boundaries and contract and property law enforcement, so to speak.
I think you're okay with contract law being entirely done through a private market, right?
Well, like I said with the Ayn Rand example about contract law, like I liked her position saying you choose to pay the 3%, and then you can go to a judge if things don't go well, or you can choose not to pay the taxes, and if you get screwed over, then it's at your own risk. So if it would be that kind of formula, I would be pro. So I would like to have the government to be like a backup, but I wouldn't like the government to be like, we have to arbitrate all contracts. Like, definitely not. Like, if the market could fill that gap, sure.
Yamaz, I would pose to you this question.
Okay.
What is the difference between property or value in a contract law setting? They talk about consideration. If you have two parties, you're a provider of a service and I'm purchasing your service, or whatever the case may be. You're a landlord, I'm a tenant. Consideration on my part is the rent. The consideration on your part is the facility, let's say.
Yeah.
What is the difference to you in that scenario versus when the property becomes a human body? Why is it different there? Why can't contract law cover that property as well?
Oh, you mean like with the girl and the rapist, you mean?
Sure, yeah.
Well, the difference would be that he is an objective threat to all the other girls, apart from being a threat to this girl who he already raped. So that makes this like a threat to the individual rights of all these women. So that takes it out of the sphere of a one-on-one agreement. So,
okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I was just curious where you draw the distinction. My response to you, because I think...
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, my response to you with regards to some of what you and Robert were saying is that, first of all, with regards to what Robert had said, technology-wise, we are there. So if you can do a snap transaction real quick at a register with a Visa card or debit card or QR code with Bitcoin, you could have lightning-fast realization of a lot of information. So anytime you meet a stranger, anytime you have a new interaction in a free society, let's say you have an app where everybody can register and link their various vitals to it, whatever you want. You could link your Facebook, you could link your bank account, you could link some third-party reputation organization you belong to that's unbiased, and they're rated at the extent to which they're unbiased, right? So we can have all those kind of functions built into an app to where we meet each other and I say, oh no, Yamaz, I don't want you to think I'm some sort of bandit or anything. Let me just verify my identity. Let's beep our devices together. You can see my, an unbiased. So as soon as the rapist is even accused of rape, if I had that app, right, this DRO type of app situation, and I was to look on it and go, oh my God, someone's accusing me of rape, I might have nothing to hide at all, but I'm still going to try to clear that off of my home screen, so to speak. I'm going to address that issue and go, who thinks I'm a rapist? Let's see some proof. I'll go to court on that. I don't want that even on my radar. So someone that has a lot of odds and ends that they didn't go to court for or didn't address, that's still a really bad sign, I think. And I think the market's ready to bear that.
Okay. Well, probably in most cases, but if you're like accused of rape and you know this girl is crazy, so like it would have to be like you against her in a court. You might not take that risk.
But your context for the idea of a court, in my opinion, I just met you, so I might be wrong. Just going off of what you're saying, is a government court. So a government court has no incentive for justice whatsoever. Their only incentive is expediency. So they want to decrease the amount of fines, decrease the amount of costs, and increase the amount of turnover through their court. As many heads as we can roll through here is the better. That's their incentives. That's the actual mathematical, economical incentives they have. So in a free society, the courts would have an incentive to actually dole out real justice. So if someone was accusing you of rape, first of all, in a free society, they would be thinking differently too. They would be like, oh, well, this is just a blanket accusation I'm going to make. No, you're making a serious claim. This guy's going to go take you to court now for slander. If you can't back up the fact that he raped you with DNA evidence or something like that, now you don't have to prove the disprove the positive, but if she can't make a case and you make your case, okay, here's her previous relationships, here's some public statements she said, here's the type of personality she is, here's some pictures of her being drunk in public and whatever. Here's a list of her last 10 boyfriends. This guy's in jail, this guy's a criminal, whatever. I've never been with her. No one's ever seen me being with her, or whatever. If you actually didn't rape her, now, if at the end of the day, the way justice should be served is you're innocent until proven guilty. So if I said you raped me, I would have to prove that you raped me somehow. It sounds hard, but that's the way it is now. That's the way it's always been. So,
okay.
I mean...
Yeah, but the difficult thing for the guy often is that he can never prove he didn't rape her. So I get what you're saying, totally. Like, he should never be like convicted without full proof. But and you're talking about how
he can prove he didn't. He's got an alibi.
Okay, well, except if he's got it on tape, or for instance,
yeah,
like in that case,
a video camera that shows.
Well, no. She could say to the judge privately. He could say to her, "Miss, when were you raped? What day? What time? Where were you?" Well, it was Thursday night. I was at 8 o'clock. Here. Now, only in the cases where they were actually together on that day would it be a problem. But if she just says, "Oh, he raped me last Friday," and he goes, "Okay, well, here's my alibi. I was over at the grocery store."
No, okay. So sometimes
here's my debit card transaction. You know.
But in any case where there has been intercourse, it would just be like he say, she say, and even if he doesn't get convicted. Because she can't prove it, he will always have like the stigma. But I get your point, right? But going back to what you said about incentives for courts, you might have missed the earlier discussion where I said that Ayn Rand didn't support taxation in any form. So this government we're talking, voluntary donations or voluntary funding, So this government court would have an incentive to speak law, to speak justice, because they would be they would need their funds, right? So if they mess up, if they like let rapists go and shit, like it wouldn't be good for their product, that people would like want them out. So
I agree with you.
There would be maybe it's not as strong as a market incentive, but there would be a incentive.
Well, actually, what you're talking about really is the market incentive. It's just you're not seeing it.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, it's not as if they could like raise prices for rape cases, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that.
Can you explain to me, Yamaz? I might have missed this too. I don't understand. How is it a government if it's not funded by coercive taxation?
Oh yes. Well, this is like kind of the semantic discussion we had. Ayn Rand called it government. That was her choice, and she said it has a monopoly on retaliatory force. It can only protect individual rights. It can never initiate force against anyone. No one can be forced to pay for it. So if you don't consider that to be a government...
It sounds like you're talking about a company. And what I think is that... But here's the difference to me, is that a company can go bankrupt. A company can go under. You know, they don't have a horse and buggy industry like they used to because of the automotive industry. So when the internet comes by and says, no, we can do dispute resolution better... If Ayn Rand's government is going to come in and shut down as retaliatory force the companies that want to offer better dispute resolution, then it's not a company, it's a government, because there's aggression. They're forcing their own monopoly because they think they know what's best. If it's a true free market court system or government system, then it's just an organization. It's just like the Rotary Club or the Freemasons. You can join it, pay dues or not. You don't have to.
Well, I would call it an organization. But government is an organization, so it's not really, like, it doesn't exclude each other. So, yes, you could call it an organization, but they would have a monopoly on retaliatory force. If you're okay with that, fine, I'm okay with it too, because I feel no one has the right to initiate force, so...
But if you accept that principle, that nobody has the right to initiate force...
Definitely.
Like you said, if the Republican option comes along and the Democrats say, you can't do that, that's initiating force. Excuse me.
Bless you.
If the government prohibits competition, that is an initiatory force.
Well, they can't stop you from trying to form a new government, but they can stop you if you take your army and fight them. Only then can they stop you. But if you're just saying, I would like to run this government, please donate your money to me and let me handle the ministry and fire these guys who are in charge now because they suck, and the people in the country, like the donors, support you in like overwhelming numbers. What I'm saying is either there's going to be some form of secession, or there's going to be a power switch, or there might be a civil war. Like, it could go like three ways, right? It depends on the context, on the culture, on how great you are, how bad they suck. Like,
Imans, I don't like the idea of the borders thing either. I mean, is that part of Ayn Rand's centrally planned government utopia? The idea of having geographic borders tying us off? Because you were talking about that initially in the beginning, and that is, you guys were talking about how it's a benefit to understand where laws apply or rules apply.
It has advantages. It has advantages. That's what
I disagree. Okay. I think it's much like heroin. Yes, there is the upside to it, but it's very small. Here's the thing, right? So by creating a boundary, you're creating an area that can be taken over. Okay? By creating a tax base, you're creating an incentive structure for someone to invade because they already have a population ready to pay up the chain to something for services. By having an anarchistic society where there are no boundaries, there's nothing to invade. There's no sense in invading this part of the nation because there's no cohesiveness. Not like you take over DC and you get the whole country.
But hold up, there are boundaries between private properties, right?
So you believe in those, but they're not all under one umbrella. They all have competing interests. So I can't take over all of the General Electric factories and say, okay, I run the free society in North America, because that invasion alone would be such a threat that all the other companies would boycott and stop funneling, because that's if they see that investment or that overthrow as a detriment, they're not just going to go to the bigger bully. They're saying, oh no, we had a good ally with GE and you guys came in and took over all their factories, so we're just going to economically starve you. We're going to buy our products from someone else.
But listen, we agree.
The boundary helps.
But we agree on not wanting taxation. So your point about moving in and getting the tax base, like, that wouldn't exist in this laissez-faire minarchist society I'm describing. So, like, that argument would go to the background. So, like, listen, I'm saying thinking about a world without borders seems far-fetched at this point, but maybe like the internet revolution and other technologies could advance that development. But I see an advantage in having an objectively defined piece of land where one law applies.
The advantage to me.
Well, the advantage is that you know what you're getting into. So, like Ayn Rand, here I picked up Ayn Rand quote.
No, but you don't know what you're getting into, because we have that already now in this country, in America, where we live. Well, I don't know if you live in America. I'm assuming you do.
I live in the Netherlands, but.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, that's awesome. But whether I was with you there in Amsterdam or whether you were here in America, we would know what the laws were, as to your point. But you wouldn't know if I was going to abide by the laws. You may not know that I'm, a lawbreaker or an anarchist, where I might abide to my own set of codes. But when it comes down to breaking arbitrary nanny laws, I'll do that left and right. So you might say, I can trust this guy to not smoke marijuana in front of my children if I leave my children with him, because we're in America and that's clearly illegal. Not true, because I don't care about that law, and maybe I'll do that. I'm not saying I would, and but you know what I'm saying. You're assuming that.
But like,
it's not explicit.
So this is what she says. She says, all laws must be objective and objectively justifiable. Men must know clearly and in advance of taking an action what the law forbids them to do and why. What constitutes crime and what penalty that they will incur if they commit it. So, like, this stands to reason that you would say this law that we're like explicitly explaining to all you guys, it goes up to that piece of land, because after that piece of land it's called Canada, and that's not within our area. So just so you know, if you shoot a deer in Canada, you might get some penalty because they have different laws than us. So it just serves that advantage alone, like, let alone what you think of the laws.
Right.
What's to prevent that government from growing, though, too? That's my other concern. Like, I love it. Like, okay, so we can create this government in a box or in a petri dish and say, well, if it couldn't do this and it couldn't do that and it only had the power to do this, that'd be awesome. Great. So how do we actually? That's like your whole thing that you read from Ayn Rand is like saying all birthday parties should be fun and should have cake and should. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
but you can't force that to happen.
Well, okay, I would have like 2 or 3 things to say about that. First, if we ever get to this point, I hope you agree with me. Like, if we ever get to like the laissez-faire minarchist point, like, society would have gotten so much better, right? So people would have gotten way more rational. They would respect property rights like to a way bigger extent. There would probably be like an intellectual elite in the country promoting capitalism, telling people why we should respect individual rights. So first off, I think that's a big reason why the government does not have to grow, because there would be a way bigger understanding of why fiat money is bullshit, why we should allow Bitcoin, you name it, right? So that would be one reason why the government could be contained. And the other one would be because the money is voluntary, donated. Like, that's another big reason why we could have a lid on the government. And then you could, of course, say, what if those voluntary guys turn out to be assholes and start turning it into a dictatorship?
No.
Well,
what if the funds stop coming in? What if the money stops coming in? What if like the government's supposed to protect courts and do whatever in these areas? What if people don't fund it?
Okay, well, this is an obvious problem. Like, if the government is like providing all these services, but like nobody thinks they're worth shit, right? So like nobody is sending them money because let's say they do a bad job. Otherwise, people would probably would want to pay for like a good cop, right? So if you're in a situation where a government is not able to get the funds to let's say function to like a real mediocre extent, then I would consider it to be a failed state, and then probably someone like Robert could come in with a better plan, or there would be, like I said, a civil war or a secession. Like, one of those two things is going to happen.
Why does it have to be tied to geography? So if this government service provider that you talked about that was voluntary failed, why should Robert get to come in and take over the service provision for all of North America?
No. That's why I said three options. I said three options.
Grow and shrink,
No, I said three options. I said either Robert takes over the area because he thinks he's better, either there will be some form of civil war and then like a new divide of the country, or there would be a peaceful secession. So
all of those except for the third one sound bad. The third one sounds peaceful, but the other two sound terrible.
No. But like terrible things happen, right? I mean, the civil war is always a possibility if there's a failed state government.
I'm trying to understand, why do you want it? I don't understand the benefit of tying laws to geographic locations.
Well,
or even rules to geographic locations. Go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry.
If you're going to be in my house, you're going to follow my rules. And if you don't pick off your shoes because I like to have my floors clean,
okay, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like large swaths of geographic areas that include multiple individuals.
There isn't any logically consistent reason behind that other than the fact that you know what you're getting ahead of time, and that is primarily.
You just research like, I'm going to St. Louis, and here's how they do things there, or I'm going downtown, and that's how shit gets done downtown, like.
But you don't even see.
Beware.
No, but you don't even see the advantages when it comes to like military war and defense. Like,
no, that's a different thing.
I don't want a military or war or anything.
No, okay, but nobody wants war.
There's nothing to invade.
Like, nobody wants war, right?
There's only something to invade because we have a state.
All right, but Randall, let's not conflate things. Okay, we've got two different services we're talking about. We've got arbitration, and then you've got defense services. Okay, defense services is a totally different subject. If we want to go down that road, we'll go down that road. But
let me just real quick. I think there is a tie. Real quick, I think that defense is the means of protecting your monopoly. So if you have the monopoly on dispute resolution, you have a monopoly on whatever else it may be that Ayn Rand or this minarchist utopia says is okay. That monopoly alone is what the military is defending, and that's the incentive for someone to invade. So when you take away that monopoly, there's nothing to incentivize an invader, and invasion becomes extremely more costly. So
hold on.
That has to be defended.
Hold on. So you're saying other countries are going to invade us because they want to take the monopoly on the use of retaliatory force in a country where there's no forced taxation?
No,
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like,
okay, let's
of course. That's extremely valuable.
In the bud. Okay,
I got extremely valuable.
The idea that that anarchists have said about why it is that other governments would not invade the United States if we were to be a totally anarchistic society is that, well, they don't have the power structure in order to create taxation, and that's what they're, would you invade a farm or would you invade a forest? That's bullshit. Okay, Stefan Molyneux is completely wrong on this. Okay, countries invade other countries for natural resources.
No, because the people that have the natural resources in the free market have all the incentive in the world to defend their. I'm not saying that your coal mine can't have battalions of defense around that coal mine so that no one can invade your coal mine.
Yeah,
but
yeah. The thing
there's
is,
no reason to have a whole army to defend just all the property in this swath of land. That makes no sense. I can't hear it. I don't see the sense in it.
The thing that's important to remember, though, is the idea that just because you don't have a central government, that somehow diminishes in any way, shape, or form the reasoning behind another nation coming in.
Why would you invade? Why would you invade a stateless society? I don't understand.
So that we could get access to your oil.
But the oil companies have extremely crazy defense all around the oil fields. They're not going to let you come over and take over.
That's different, okay? Whether you have
in a free society.
Okay.
Why would your oil?
That's a different argument. That's a different argument. Okay.
Okay.
If you're going to have an argument that says we're going to have the finest arms that are available to anybody, and we're going to have the ability to defend ourselves to the hilt, that's one argument. That's fine. That's a different argument than saying because there is no structure of a government to take over for a tax system is a reason that they won't come. It's a relatively minor, if not completely irrelevant, reason. Okay. The reason that they come is because they want the natural resources.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the military defends those natural resources, what's the actual objective difference than if BP and Joseph A. Bank and all these guys defend it themselves? What's the difference?
Okay, well, the big difference primarily is going to be the economy of scale. And if you have an economy of scale when it comes to a military defense force that is fully funded by, let's say, a 40% tax on all of its citizens, you distributed the costs across that vast amount of population versus having all of the costs of the defense of your mine or whatever being borne by the mine owner. And therefore,
if you agree with me that economies of scale work in the market, then you can't argue that having inefficiencies will make more efficiency. Like if I told you that McDonald's should order their own shake containers and Wendy's should order their own cups and Burger King should buy their own materials, you would agree with me that each company should decide what materials are important and what is the best value for their customers. Right. So it's the same argument to say, well, let's have one big defense force for every single industry. Let's let the farms and the gold mines, everything all be defended by the same big force.
Randall, let me bring in the argument of the rapist, because I said with the rapist, all the other girls are like in danger because this one rapist who might walk free. Well, it's the same thing with war, because the moment like Mexico attacks the U.S., they are threatening every U.S. citizen. So it's not just a case of they are threatening this one village they're bombing. No, they're literally threatening every U.S. citizen.
But explain to me how that would unfold. Like, I want you to paint that picture. You're a Mexican war guy, and you're like, I'm going to go invade America. What's your incentive? Why are you doing it? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, let's say I'm gonna try to invade Texas to get a hold of their oil.
Sure.
Whatever. So I'm bombing on Texas. The moment I'm bombing on Texas, I'm basically threatening every American, saying you could be next if I decide to.
Hang on, though. Are you really after the oil, or are you after conquering the whole country in this scenario?
After the oil.
Yeah, let's say I want to get to the oil first, so I have more money, so I can conquer the rest. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, fine. So
you don't know. I'm a crazy guy, right?
Hold on. Yeah. Sure, I like that. But you're gonna invade the Texas oil fields with your army. If you have a small army, you're an idiot because you're gonna lose, because these people are defending their oil fields. They have basically a little private military that is completely defensive. But if anyone were to aggress, they're ready to deploy on that aggressor in self-defense. So you're prepared to do that. That's fine. You're obviously amassing a pretty large force. The people that own big assets, like billions and trillions of dollars worth of natural resources, and they're custodians of those, and they're doing a good job at that, the market, is rewarding them for their service. So they're going to invest a portion of their proceeds to be researching for threats, to be researching people that want to raise militias against them, or any interest. If this guy has an oil field in Mexico and they're close and they might be the ones to come attack, they're bugging your lines. They're trying to find out everything they can find out, scrupulously or unscrupulously, maybe, I don't know. But there could be little turf wars in an anarchy. I'm okay with that. But for you to go invade the oil field, even if you succeed, all the other customers of that oil company, all the other partners, all the other distributors, the networks that advertise their company, the cars, the buyers that use that, stop at those gas stations and buy oil, the gas stations, are they going to keep funding that same relationship when there's so many other options in the market after it was just hostilely taken over by some hostile force that could stretch and grow throughout the land? No. They're going to strangle you off.
No, okay, but you're assuming that like maybe I don't want them to buy my oil because that would be in my advantage that the rest of America doesn't get oil, and I'm selling this oil to like crazy ass African warlords who are like paying me big coin for it. So I might not even care if Americans buy.
Then why would you not just get an oil well in Africa? You want to pay all that extra to cart it across the ocean? Go take over one in Africa.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know, these are really high.
It's just what you're saying doesn't make sense because efficiencies of scale are a market phenomenon. So when
no.
Okay, Randall, let me, because that was my point. That wasn't his point.
Yeah.
I have to. Okay. Now, here's what's going to happen. A country can sacrifice all the other businesses that they have in order to fund a particular business when they've got a ruler. When they've got a ruler, they can allocate resources that would normally benefit all the other industries that they have, but they don't. They apparently decided that they don't want to fund any sort of consumption type industries like the entertainment industry or the whatever sort of industries that are just luxurious type of things. Sports
industries, yeah.
All these enjoyment industries, okay, and they take from all of them a certain percentage and make them less efficient, okay. They can apply all of that extra money into efficiencies for their military, creating a more powerful military than you could possibly create in your particular world that you're talking about. Okay, sure. It can happen. It would happen, and they would be interested in taking advantage of our resources. Now, the thing that's funny about it is, though, that realistically, cost-wise, it would probably cost them less money than to just actually buy the land.
Buy their own company, buy a small oil company, buy stake in companies and make profit that way. The fact is, the market, look in any scenario, the lemonade stand, it's so much more reasonable to say, I would like to go in partners with you. Can I buy some lemonade and sit here half the time and we can split the profits, than to just go, I'm going to take over. Because then you have them coming back to retaliate.
Right, and so that's the explanation. That's the way that you should argue it. It's not about the idea of having, that you don't have a tax structure that's some sort of has anything to do with it. What happens is that there are other alternatives that are, because you have a free market system, and anybody can offer money for any product or service, that it's less costly to go to, it's more costly to go to war than it is to just buy, So that's
also with the military thing too, how you were saying, like, a government could just say, all right, we're going to cut off making rivets right now because we're making war fighters or whatever, and to just say, well, we're going to have a bigger military now because we can snap our fingers and say, well, we're not making Fords, we're making F-16s. That's great for your war effort, but you're assuming that a war effort is the most productive use of those assets. You're assuming what we need right now is a lot of defense or a lot of offense. As a centralized authority, you're sending your attack team out to do something that costs money. Right. If you're able to take money from elsewhere to pool or allocate to do that, you're assuming a need. You're placing assets
but Randall,
for people without their,
But Randall, I have to ask because you continually assume that the enemy is going to have some reasonable goal. And I get that because, like, we all love reason, right? But
no, anybody that's capable of doing anything has reason. You can't be a successful force of attack if you're a complete spaz. You won't put an army together, you won't do anything.
Okay, so you would consider ISIS to be reasonable?
No, they were funded by the CIA. The CIA is an extremely organized and well-funded organization.
But
so, yes. By proxy, they're extremely reasonable.
I would not consider ISIS to be reasonable. I don't think they want rational
Why don't
goals.
you consider them to be reasonable? I mean, if their goal is to establish an Islamic State and to force, then it makes perfect sense that they would do exactly what they're doing.
No,
If that's their
but
goal.
no, but you're talking about logical, and logical is not the same as reasonable. Like
But I would argue,
the moment
That is
that
Von Mises demolished this bit. To be rational and to think rationally and to put your to fit to seek after ends through economic through any type of means does not necessarily mean that the ends are necessarily going to come about. To act in a purposeful manner does not mean necessarily to act in a way that is most beneficial to you. For example, if let's say if I want to heal brain surgery for let's say someone has some problem with the brain, and I just try it out, am I acting in a rational manner, or am I being am I doing it for a reason? Am I being rational in that I am saying, okay, here's the problem. I think this is going to fix it. Therefore, I do this. I fry your brain because for some reason I think that's going to fix your psychological problem.
Well,
it doesn't matter whether or not it will actually accomplish that goal. The question is, does the actor themselves believe that the goal will be accomplished by what they're doing?
Let me explain what I was trying to say. I'm saying this. The moment you initiate force, the moment you don't respect individual rights, you have placed yourself outside the realm of reason. And the point I was trying to get to was to say to Randall that there are enemies out there who are not so rational and who could have real different goals than we would have when we would conquer something. So, like, you could have the Islamic terrorists.
That's fine. But that's like you said.
Trying to blow up the Texas oil field. They don't need to conquer it. They don't need to invade and hold every post.
That's fine. But what you said is
they just needed to flame
of any case in the world. So you said we can't talk about issues that are true of any case. There's always going to be people that will not use reason in their dealings, who are irrational.
No, but they
may be aggressive.
No, but they're like in the world right now. No, but this is not like a fantasy. This is not a fantasy. Like, they are out here in the world right now. So this is like a.
By the way, I have to correct you on something that you said there, which is absolutely incorrect. You indicated that as soon as you initiate force, that you are acting outside of reason. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. It's false. That's not a true statement. The initiation of force is absolutely 100% a reasonable and rational thing to do. And for example, you're out in the forest. Winter has come, or a snowstorm has come, and you're starting to freeze to death. You're also starving. You find a cabin that is not yours. You break the window open, and you find food, and you eat it. This is a rational, and it is a
reasonable response. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but come on.
Violating somebody else's property rights. Now, the non-aggression principle, which is what the anarcho-capitalists believe in, is the idea that if you do violate somebody else's property, or person, through the initiation of force, that at this point you have licensed them to use defensive force to prevent such an action from occurring. Also, you've licensed them to use retaliatory force in order to make themselves whole.
Okay, I'm going to give the same response as I gave in the beginning of the last talk. Like, we do not live on lifeboats. We do not live on mountaintops, freezing and storming into other people's cabins. So that's why this is not a real philosophical.
But there have actually been examples of these types of situations happening. Okay,
but it's not a philosophical.
I don't think it's necessary to the point, though, either. I don't think
it's not a philosophical.
It's necessary to whether or not.
It's not a philosophical.
NAP has to do with reason or not.
It's not a philosophical argument. Like, you definitely know what I mean when I say put yourself outside the realm of reason. It doesn't apply to like a dying man knocking down a window. Come on.
Going back to the topic of borders, though, Yamaz. What is it about a border that helps us defend against groups like ISIS or the KKK? I think, if anything, it's these groups that are getting shelter from geographic borders. If there was no border and it wasn't an invasion for me to go across the Pakistani line, and me and 100 not bandits, but just people said, we know about ISIS, we're done taking their shit, we're going to go find those motherfuckers and take them out. If it weren't for borders, I could just walk my ass across over there and find these guys and fuck them up.
Well, listen,
so could you, and so could everybody else.
Well,
it's borders that are keeping them safe.
like in the Middle East, the way the borders were drawn were like totally crazy. But
it doesn't matter. It's
So,
still keeping
no,
them safe
no.
today. They hide out in these nations where they can't be touched. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, our allies. We can't go get them there.
No, okay, but they can't be touched because we call those countries allies while they're actually not. But that has to do with foreign
borders. But because of the
that
borders,
has to do with
if there was all anarchy, you could go and get these fuckers.
That's a foreign policy issue. That's not per
because
se
we
a
have
borders
countries. Only because we have countries.
No, but
in anarchy, there wouldn't be foreign policy. That's not even a real term.
Even if you wouldn't have countries, there still would be diplomacy. So there still would be foreign policy. Even if you
there wouldn't be
countries.
big groups. There wouldn't be big groups there wouldn't be geographic groups. It wouldn't be, we're Ireland speaking as Ireland. It would be this company, this group, this individual. If I have Allstate DRO organization, my customers are worldwide. So if I have a claim against this CEO of this company, and I say, well, he supports me and gives me money on the side, so I'm going to get him off. It doesn't matter because I have contracts all around the world. So by me giving him favoritism, I have all the people that are his benefits are counter to, who are also my clients, who are now going to see that favoritism or believe that. So I have the highest incentive to be as impartial as possible. You're saying we need to have these big boundaries to protect the innocent. They don't protect the innocent. They protect the evil and the vile people in the world.
Well,
they don't protect the innocent.
I think the only reason that borders can protect evil people is because our foreign policy sucks. Talking about the West, just to be.
Doesn't matter though. It is what it is.
It does.
It will always be that way. It will always be that way.
If we would have had a selfish foreign policy, it would have been totally different. We would not be friends with Pakistan, Saudi Arabia.
We do have a very selfish foreign policy. That's
we have an altruist foreign policy.
The United States, listen to me, brother. The United States cannot maintain dollar dominance around the world without the petrodollar, without having the force and domination in Iraq and Pakistan and the Middle East and all these countries. So the foreign policy that the United States has wouldn't work in the Byzantine era, wouldn't work with Greek, wouldn't work with the Romans because they had real money. They had actual items that represented their money. When we can print money at a whim, you can expand and expand and expand and expand because you're saying, use the fucking dollar or I'm going to shoot you. That's what you're saying to every country. Go ahead, try to cash in your dollar. See what happens. We're going to be invading next.
No. Listen, let me explain. When I say the foreign policy of the U.S. is altruist, what I mean is the U.S. is not really chasing its own advantage. And you're talking about like petrodollar, whatever. We can go back to we could go back to World War II. Like America should have never gone to Normandy. Like
Why do you say that?
Because we should have let the Nazis duke it out with the communists and then wipe it out.
No. Here's why not, though. Here's why not. The United States needed a reason to establish themselves as a global world power. It was Russia. It was the UK. It was China. It was all these nations that were coming up. And even though we had the Industrial Revolution here, World War II, that's why Pearl Harbor was a false flag. Because they said, they were going, how can we get into this fucking thing? It was like a jump rope. Like, I want to get in. Finally, they had a way to get in.
Okay, but that was Japan.
Hitler, Nazis, they wanted to come in and say, we saved the day. And plus, all the reparations from World War II, they put Germany, Italy, this nation, that nation, the other nation, all in the, same as World War I. Put them in the fucking welfare, in the breadline, because they knew we're going to fuck these guys up because they're just this big. And we're going to all come together and squish them up, and we're going to get to take all the credit. And then we get the New Deal, and then we get all that stuff.
I want to go further into this, but I think Robert, we're really getting far from.
Yeah, we are going far afield.
So.
All right, I want to address one other point. All right. When it comes to having a monopoly on arbitration, what happens when the monopoly is one of the participants in the arbitration?
You mean like when the government is being sued by someone?
Yeah, when the government does a wrong and they're being sued. How does that arbitration work?
Well, the government is bound by law also. The government is not some entity that... it is.
But who's the arbiter of that law?
Well, I think the judges in this state would still be independent in the sense that if the government violates its own constitution, they would have the right to deem out a compensation or they would like have someone fired in the government who is responsible for something. Like you have that already, right? Like you already have some states that are really strong on corruption, like I don't know, Singapore, for instance, and I think the Netherlands is quite good in that area. So of course it's a tricky issue, but I don't think it's something we can't handle, especially when the culture is way more rational and like they are funded voluntarily, so they can't really mess around too much with, letting government guys walk off scot-free for doing major fuck-ups. So I don't know, like it's an issue, but I don't want to know if it's like my biggest fear of government becoming bigger.
The fact is that if they have a monopoly, then they are the arbiters of their own situation. And again, this is not objectively valid. This is a situation where you've got two different rules, where A is not A. You're giving them a position of being something that is not A, even though it's supposed to be A.
No. But if we're talking about a cop who like shoots someone without.
No. I'm not talking about a cop that does that. I'm talking.
Okay.
I'm talking about, let's say, for example, that there's a conspiracy within all of the current leaders of the government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where they buy a bunch of stock in some sort of company,
Mm-hmm.
and grant them some sort of a no bid contract like Halliburton.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, obviously, this is a conflict of interests. They have benefited in a way that is certainly outside of the realm of what they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if another competing company like Lockheed Martin were to sue them for making a no-bid contract with Halliburton over the creation of these airplanes, for example,
Mm-hmm.
then what recourse do they have? They have no other person, no other company, no other institution that they can go to say, yeah, you guys didn't actually have a fair, free market trade situation.
Mm-hmm.
You had a dictation to all this money is going to go over here. So that's not a legitimate system, because you have A is A and A.
Yeah,
B,
definitely. I agree. Okay, so I would say this. I would say somewhere in the Constitution there would have to be explicitly stated that there's a separation between state and economics. And it would have to, of course, be defined more clearly, like examples. And if Lockheed Martin...
How the hell do you separate state from economics when the state had the forced monopoly on three important economic factors and the control of the money supply?
No. Who says I'm in favor of the state controlling the money supply?
Oh, he's not in favor of that.
I didn't say that.
He's talking about an anarchist type of scenario here.
So they're not taxing and they're not creating the money. So the only thing you got is they run the army, which is like an economic factor. But that's not like the same as the state shaping the economics, right?
Just do that one thing, okay?
Yeah.
Right now they have the authority to pick which company that they're going to give the money to for the guns.
Yeah.
Okay? So if they specifically give the money to a company that happens to be owned by the sister-in-law of the big-name politician,
Mm-hmm.
there is no ability for anybody to claim or file a claim and get anywhere in that system justice.
But
the arbitration is done by the group. Now, I mean, the thing is that's also weird is that you can write all this stuff down on a constitution, and the thing that's boggles my mind. What was the first president, the very first president to violate the rules written down in the Constitution of the United States?
George Washington.
You're a freaking dweeb.
Sorry.
Well, I'm not.
I'm
not American, but I would have guessed the same. So.
Okay. Yeah. George Washington, the very first president of the United States, violated the Constitution of the United States. The whiskey.
Okay.
Thomas Jefferson violated it, and he was more of a strict constitutionalist out of all of them.
I would say that pretty much every single president that ever existed, with the possible exception of the guy who died after 37 days, violated
the Constitution. Also calls for no standing army. That didn't work out.
No, but hold on. There was a Dutch president like Van Buren, so I'm guessing he was a good guy, right?
Yeah, he was cool. No.
Yeah. So, okay, to the point of Lockheed Martin. First off, I think like the judiciary department of the government would not be connected with the department that decides on military expenditure. So there would be some separation.
Not implicitly connected, Yamas.
Yeah,
Not
so there would.
implicitly on paper, but behind the scenes, of course, there'd be nothing preventing them from being connected.
Well, the thing that would be preventing them would be that their donors could, like, say, screw this. People could secede. People could immigrate to other countries where there's more freedom. So
how's that working out now? People voting with their feet.
No, but come on, like, don't compare this to like a minarchist society. That's not fair.
I think that's exactly what this is, man. You give a centralized group the ability to raise an army and to do dispute resolution. You have a little state. If I said I want a government that all it does is mail and food stamps and sports teams, that's still aggression. If the free market can't decide those things, you're aggressing with your state.
No, but this is the difference, though, because food stamps require taxation, and then you dole them out.
No, you could privately fund food stamps. Anybody that thinks to be food stamps can pay towards the government. Anyone who doesn't. Okay.
Oh, okay, like that. Okay, you mean like
it's
you want
still
to
aggression.
It's still aggression
because that manipulation in the market ruins the free market.
Yeah, because then you would be violating the separation of state and economics.
Sure. So are
separate state from economics when the state has the monopoly on 3 industries.
What are the 3 again?
Defense, arbitration, imprisonment.
Oh, okay. So he's not talking about money anymore.
No.
Because I would put imprisonment with arbitration. Is that weird? To consider them to be
one? Different service.
Judiciary, the same thing. The arbitration. It doesn't matter whether you're dealing with criminal or civil law. You're still dealing with a guy who's arbitrating disputes, and we call them judges or magistrates.
But if I'm talking about separating states from economics, I'm talking about no subsidies, no political pull, no
those
tariffs.
3 things are economic things. It costs money to do defense. It costs money to do arbitration.
And
it costs money to make prisons.
Yeah, you still have to buy bullets. You still have to. I mean, maybe the government should own the production of guns.
Maybe goddamn communists in 3 different industries, all status are. The military is the communist institution. The police is the communist institution.
Yep.
There's nothing free market about it.
Yes.
No. What is communist about the police? Like, explain that to me.
It is communal.
It's centralized. Yeah.
But if the goal of the police were to be to protect individual rights, they wouldn't be initiating force, no?
Yes, they would. They prohibit anyone else from competing with them on final law enforcement.
No, on defense or security. Yeah.
No. But the police is not
competition on the low level. But when it comes to the final level, they're the only ones that are allowed to be the final ruler when it comes to law enforcement.
No, that would be the judges. That would be the judge, not the police, right? The police would be at the first, and then the judge would be the final, right? So the police would not be handing out punishments. Yeah,
but it's aggression because I'm a free person, I'm an individual, and you're part of the centralized police society, and so is everyone else funding it, and so is the administration. But I'm an individual. I want to start my own defense group. I can't do that. There's nothing about freedom that says I can't start my own defense company, except for the fact that I live within a geographic area that has a monopoly of force.
No, you could start a defense company. You just can't arrest people and put them in your chambers. But you could start a defense company.
Well,
like
how can I compete with your defense company?
What human beings the right to arrest them if I can't do it? What gives them? What makes this group of human beings you call politicians and police officers the right to put people in cages? If I can't do it, why did they have that?
It's not about a group of people. Like, that's not the point here. It's not like government is like a monolith of certain people in power and they stay there for years.
What gives them the right to lock you up in a cage when you and I cannot do it? What is it about this group of people that gives them that right?
Well, here it comes. The fact that they are doling out an objective law aimed at protecting individual rights, the fact that they are voluntarily funded.
How do you know it's objective?
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing. How do you know it's objective law? You said
Well,
it's objective. It
Okay,
sounds subjective to me.
okay, but this is
I didn't agree to it.
but this is like the beginning of like an entire discussion. So we could talk about how would
But if I said
objective
to you,
law look like.
If I said to you,
Okay,
come to
sure.
my movie theater, I have HD screens, and then you come and it's all grainy and black and white, and you go, well, it depends on what you mean by HD. No, I think we all know what objective means. If one or a small group of people are making a set of rules that apply to millions and millions of people, that is not objectivism, that's subjectivism. That's a small group imposing their whim upon a large group.
No, but hold on. Well, if the rules only say don't touch people, don't mess with their stuff, don't rape people, don't murder, that's objective as hell.
The rules also say you may not create a competing police or security force. You may not create your own competing defense organizations. You may not create your own competing court systems or what was the other one?
Okay,
you're restricting the rights of individuals.
Okay.
Even though it's only in 3 areas, it's still restriction.
Let me finish off that sentence. Unless you can convince all the voluntary donors that we suck and you can do a better job than us.
Yeah, so I'm creating a monopoly that the only way you can end is if you can prove that you're a better monopoly than me.
Are you saying you're part of the government?
What? I'm part of the government? What? No. So in that sense, they can stop you. Like I said, like 4 times already. If you can prove to be better at your product, and people founding the government agree with you, 3 things will happen.
Let me do it a different way.
Start a new government.
I gotta jump in here. We're running out of time. So I want. Okay, you're next.
Yeah.
Okay. You agree with the principle that people should be able to choose what service they want when it comes to government. It's just that you require them to jump through the hoops that you set for them, not instead of letting them actually, provide their own choice as to who they want to give their money to at the moment that they want to. You have to have them go through the secession hoop. You have to have them go through the getting enough people hoop. All these different hoops that you are choosing arbitrarily to impose on other people. Okay? You can't just let them actually make the choice for themselves at the moments of time when they want to make that decision. If they choose to give their money to some other group, you're somehow prohibiting that other group from jumping in and providing the service unless they achieve some sort of minimum boundary that you made, that you are imposing upon these free people who are voluntarily interacting. You're limiting their choice, their freedom. And that is initiation of force.
And the reason Ayn Rand made this what you call like a limited boundary, is that the word you used? Anyway,
you're creating these hoops they have to jump through that are arbitrary, that are not objective, that you are forcing upon them. You are acting as a superior.
You want to shrug that one off, Yumez, but he's right. It's not objective. It's objective when it's. Here's what's objective. Objective ethics is universal. So if I say I can't put you in a cage, that means nobody can put people into cages. If you're saying only these people can put people into cages, your morality is not objective. Objective has to be universalized.
Okay, but now I'm going to go back to the point that Robert made about the rapist not being able to defend himself, saying, I have a right to my own body because he violated that right from someone else, right? So
if you make a claim, if you actually make an action that indicates that you accept certain premises, you have to have a reciprocal premise apply to yourself.
Okay, well, Ayn Rand said something along these lines. She said, rights are inalienable, but also forfeitable. So you can do something. It's possible to do something and lose your rights. For instance, murder someone. So to the point of Randall saying, if I can put you in a cage, nobody can put anyone in the cage. Not really. If you kill someone and someone puts you in a cage, tough luck. You have no recourse. You have no recourse.
No, let me be clear. Let's nail this one down, buddy, because I think this is real easy. I'm saying on the same conditions that you can put someone in a cage, I also could put someone. So if you can put someone in a cage after a murder, I too can see a murder and put someone in a cage. In your society, if I were to do something like that, it wouldn't be seen as valid by the centralized authority. I couldn't go, well, no, we decided this in our court, so we'll process the paperwork and send it to you. If that's what you're saying, then it's not a government, it's just a company in a free society that could go bankrupt. If it has the monopoly, then there's
I think the I think the difference is that I see a real big advantage in having an
It
objective
doesn't matter what
law.
advantages you see. I see advantage to stealing your money and running all over town and having a great night. It doesn't matter what advantages you see. When you're
But it's
designing
a-
a society and trying to call it objective, it's only
Yeah.
objective if it applies equally in every case.
Exactly. You have to have if it's going to be objective, you can't create the special exemption. Okay, just like that's the reason why religion is absolutely stupid. Okay, you've got
sure.
a God who can murder people by the flood load, okay, and he's not a murderer. Okay, because
No,
he's got
he's
the
the
special
best.
exemption. Okay, the government can decide what arbitration rules are going to be, and they follow those arbitration rules, but nobody can put those same rules upon them.
No, I don't agree with that. I think it's tricky, but I don't agree with saying that people from the government are like above the law. Like that's
Okay, so the
really
government can create a monopoly that prohibits other people from doing the same thing that they do, but nobody else can create a monopoly that prohibits the government from doing the same things they do.
Right.
well. Listen, look at it like this. Okay,
It's a special exemption.
Shiny badges, man. Shiny
Well,
badges create special rights. That's what
like-
you're kind of saying.
the moment we're talking about like the market of force, we're basically talking about here. I think this is the reason why Ayn Rand made this like higher threshold compared
She's
to
just an
like.
anarchist, bro.
That's
She's
where
just
she
an
went wrong.
anarchist, that's all.
You're taking this one from her in an incorrect way. I don't think anybody's really done a good treatise on this,
Mhm.
but it's a very clear one. Okay, what Ayn Rand was talking about was that you cannot have a free market in the initiation of force. It's just horrible. You're creating warlords. You're creating
Yeah.
fighting and blah, blah, blah. And that's bullshit. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a market for defensive force. Okay? The provision of defensive force should not require that you have to be some government in order to provide it. You're
Okay.
certainly welcome
Okay.
to...
But
Okay.
here's the problem though. The problem is you're saying we just want to be free in our defensive force, and of course Ayn Rand and we all allow self-defense, right? But we're not talking about self-defense. We're talking about arbitration. So if you have this free market in defensive violence, if you want to put it like that, how do you know that all the people who are being defended against are guilty if there is no objective grounds to have a verdict? Because I just gotta believe
Hold
you.
on. If there's,
You just
why
want-
wouldn't there be objective grounds for what is property and what isn't?
Well, okay. Well, because
without a monopoly.
Well, you know why? Because Randall could have the guy in his dungeon, and if I tell him, well, are you sure he's guilty? He could just tell me, yes, I know he's guilty. I can say, well,
That's
Randall,
not a jail. That's a
no,
prison.
what
That's-
you're
that's a-
saying then-
No, this is the
Then you
difference.
have nothing objective. What you have is just
You just said we
Hold-
can't
hold
use
up.
red
Please,
herrings,
please.
and now you're using red
you're not
herrings.
No, please, let me finish the point. Let me finish the point. The big advantage of having like an objective code of law, the big advantage of that is that we know we can test if people are guilty, and we can let people go through an objective process. If I
Yeah,
just have to
nice.
if I just have to believe you, if I just have to be like, well, Randall's not an asshole, so the guy should be guilty. If that's all I have to go by, I'm still gonna live in fear, because I don't know what's gonna happen to me.
These services would be done on a free market to where there'd be orders of magnitude. You have to study something called efficiencies of scale, if you haven't heard of that, or the law of large numbers. Over large groups of numbers, whether it's goldfish in a container or whether it's people in a society, you can hash out trends and you can hash out
Okay.
almost facts that you can speak about.
I'm going
when
to
you have a free market and there's multiple providers of a service, those service providers, their incentive is towards providing the best service. So you're saying the guy in the dungeon, that's a red herring. That's not a service provider. Service provider wouldn't.
That's-
Hold on,
that's-
I got a philosophical question for this guy here. What is exactly how do you define the word objective when you say that something is objective? What the hell do you mean by it? I think we mean something completely different that's apparently coming through. I'm curious as to what you mean when you say that something or a law is objective, or that there ought to be an objective law. What do you think that word objective means in that sentence?
Well, I think it means that it can be proven, and that the standard that is used can be measured. For instance, so you say in terms of what do we consider to be evidence, for instance, and then you can have a rational standard of what we consider to be evidence, and we use that.
Who's the we? I'm sorry. Who's the we that's deciding what's evidence?
Well,
is it an individual or is it a group? I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand.
Well,
does the individual get to decide, or
it would probably not be like a one-way street, because I'm guessing that for any political.
I don't know what you mean by one-way street. I don't know what that means. Is it a group decision?
No,
or is it an individual decision?
What I mean with not a one-way street is that it's probably not going to be just one person or just one committee. What I'm guessing, if whenever a state exists or whenever a political union comes to be under a flag of a laissez-faire constitution and like a rational philosophy, I don't know if it's a group of people who has written the product or one genius guy and the rest just like, okay, this is amazing.
You said no, hold on. You're getting off track. You said objectivism requires that there can be data that can be concluded as fact. There has to be conclusions that can be drawn.
Yeah.
Who is the concluder? Who decides?
In that case, it's the judge. If it's like brought to.
But why do we want to give this one man all this power? The judge. He has his own interests. Why not let the individual decide? I'm so confused.
What? So you wanted?
How is it more objective to give a judge decision power than to let individuals decide individually?
Well, first off, the judge is a professional in this area, so he has way more knowledge about the law than.
How do I know he's a professional? How do I know that?
An arbitrator is a specialist as well.
Also, I know, but so I would rather go to an arbitrator than to Randall. Sure, like I agree with you.
Of course.
Yeah, but hold on, Randall. Just as one example, like you see a guy walking up to your car on your lawn, and you have the suspicion that he wants to steal it, and you shoot him. How is the rest of the society to know that you're not just a psychopath? Like, can you give us some?
Because things don't happen in isolation. So, my stove doesn't just automatically turn a different color. You know, sorry. How would the government change that? No. But in a free society, if I shoot that guy, then I have to bear the whole burden of going through any of his family or friends taking me to task for that or coming after me. I don't just go shooting my trigger willy-nilly in a free society.
No, I'm not saying
unless I were a cop.
I'm definitely not saying that every anarchist would.
I might put my gun at him and say, "What the fuck are you doing? Are you going near my car? Step back. That's my car.
No.
Get away from it."
I agree that that's like the better option. But let's say we don't have camera vision, so we just have to trust your word. If
I kill a guy for walking towards my car, then I'm a maniac, and I've probably done a number of maniacal things up until this point in my life, and it's a wonder that no one has shot me dead or killed me or put me in a cage or thrown me into the river at this age that I'm now wielding a gun and I drive a car. You're saying there's an 18-year-old guy that made it that far into his life in the free society where he has full accountability for his actions to where he was able to shoot a guy dead for walking in the approximate. You're presenting a red herring.
No, listen.
That's exactly what's taking place right now. You could have very good reasons.
You could have very good reasons to be suspicious. You could just be wrong, but you might not even be a psycho.
You cannot murder someone over suspicion unless you were willing to.
I know, and I agree, and that's why I'm saying that's why like a code of law has so many advantages against your word. That's what I'm saying.
There is
Nobody thinks that there shouldn't be law.
Hold on. Now, here's the thing that's important to determine. Okay, you're an empiricist. Okay, if something is objectively true, like the measurement of this particular board is 3 meters. We know it's exactly 3 meters because it's been measured and tested. Right? Now, how do you know that a law is objectively true and objectively valid if it hasn't been compared to other laws of a similar nature? Okay? You have to do the scientific method. You use isolation of various variables, and you test them. And how best to do that? Is it going to be having a fiat dictate that says, this is the law, therefore it's accurate? Or is it going to be a competition between a variety of different providers who will provide options, the best one proving itself to be
That's what it means.
Oh, hold on. Are we still there? Okay.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm still here. So, I don't think we're gonna like resolve this, but I get the point of having an advantage to, like, say, test different laws, but like, society is not some like, it's not something from a test lab, right? So it's not like, oh, we're gonna try killing rapists for a year, then we're gonna try hanging rapists for a year, and if it doesn't work out, we're gonna go back to putting them in jail for 5 years. Like, it's not that willy-nilly. It should never be that arbitrary. I hope you agree. Right?
But it was.
No, it was okay.
It was that arbitrary. And you know what happened after it was that arbitrary? We had something occur where it was called common law that formed, and it became the standard in the world as far as how to deal with these types of things. I mean, the world as it happened to be in that particular neck of the woods.
Yeah, I know.
So these became normative laws, and it didn't require a monopolistic, singular arbitration system. Laws and common law, and the basis for the governmental laws that exist now occurred using the system that we're talking about.
Okay, so would you agree with me then that because of all these developments, we have now come to a point where we could quite easily form an objective set of laws because of all this experience we've had?
No, I don't know how you could say we form objective. That statement is invalid. We form objective. We as America form an objective taste on ice cream. We as America form the best way to drive down the road in the best car. We as America form the best way to defend ourselves. We as America form an objective court system. It doesn't make sense to say we form objective anything because I disagree. I go to your court and I say, Yamaz, I hate this court. I really wish that me and my neighborhood could just do our own court systems and police ourselves.
No,
and do
but
it
listen, you shouldn't be that allergic to the use of the word "we" because I could have just meant it as in "we, the lovers of liberty."
Because you're speaking for others. You're in your language. You're speaking for others.
No, I was trying to say. Robert was making the point, like how law has developed itself among all the centuries, and how we got a pretty good law.
The existence of common law is hypothetical.
Let's let him finish his thought, okay, guys?
Yeah, so I'm saying we got to a pretty good point when it comes to like common law, like pretty good things like don't murder, don't rape, like there are some flaws in it, but in general it's pretty good. So I'm saying with all that knowledge and all our knowledge of objectivism, of anarchism, of like property rights, do you really think that in an America 50 years ahead where Ayn Rand is like the most popular philosopher in the country, you don't think we could have an intellectual elite where there would be like judicial experts coming up? You don't think that? I think
you can.
So.
Yeah, it's still aggression though. It's still aggression because you're still telling other people how to live, even if it's objectively great and a lot of people agree.
Telling people how to live, really? Are you going to be the drama queen? Like telling you not to rape is telling you how to live? Like,
no. Telling me that I cannot listen. Telling me that I can't listen. Listen to me. I'm telling you what I mean by it.
Yeah.
By having your minarchist society where the courts and the army and dispute resolution and jails or whatever are all controlled by the state, you're saying I can't compete. I cannot offer a better service. My heart and soul, my passion tells me I would be a great court provider. I'd be a great security officer. But I can't go downtown to the businesses and say I would love to provide security to these businesses because there's already a monopolization on that. You're a business owner. You go, I hate the cop in my town. I hate this. I want to hire a different security force, but I can't because it's done by the state. Your system is oppressive. I don't care how intellectual the elite is because I can't choose an alternative. I'm stuck with what you gave me.
Like I said, you can compete, but it is not compared to other businesses. So, like Robert said, he calls it hoops. I call it a minimal standard.
You're forcing us to follow your rules.
Right.
And your rules aren't rules about consistency, they're rules about inconsistency. Your rules say that you get to make rules that I don't.
No, it says that to have an objective law requires more than you having one good cop to offer.
Objective law is a contradiction.
Yeah, but hold on. The thing is, in philosophy, generally, the term when we say that something is objective, we are saying that it is independent and exists regardless of whether or not me and you agree that they would exist, or regardless of whether or not you believe they exist. That's
Sure.
what we mean. When we say something is objective, we're saying that it really exists out there, independent of any one human being, independent of the human mind.
I agree. Yeah.
It just has to be discovered. What you're talking about when you impose a state, what the state does, is the state doesn't establish any objective law. It just decrees a whole bunch of
Recognize
rules by legislation or by whatever the opinion of a judge is. Or actually, at this point, the opinion of the judge is based upon what the legislator has written. For the most part nowadays, it used to be done through common law. And common law, what the judge is supposed to be doing, not the judge's job to make law necessarily, but rather to discover law, to apply what is the norms and what is objectively the moral rules and laws that exist,
I
and
agree.
apply them to particular standards.
I agree that judges shouldn't make laws, but they should apply law. I agree, definitely. Like, I wouldn't want to give them that power, like making new laws just out of a
You're
whim.
giving people power. How does that handoff take place? Who has the power to give? Who is the party that says we're going to appoint these individuals to be in power?
Well, like, honestly,
How do you have that appointing power? Whether it's you or 6,000 people or however many people.
honestly,
Who
this
establishes that?
This is such a technical question. Like, I don't have an
not.
answer. No. It really is. If you're talking about
There is no answer to
establishing,
it. That's why. You can't objectively authorize power.
no,
It's
no,
only a
no.
subjective authorization.
No, like the question cannot be answered because you cannot like predict political like developments.
No, it's logical. It has nothing to do with prediction. It's
at the bill.
logical. It's logical. Take a group of 100 people. If it's not a unanimous decision amongst those 100, any decision made by any percentage that affects the remaining percentage is tyranny. It's just a smaller, different, or larger form of tyranny. If you take a body and say, we're going to, as a body, appoint this group.
You never have the criminals' permission to bring them to justice.
Yeah, come on.
We did talk about that, yeah. It's a kangaroo court when you have a state, because there's no alternative. The state versus the state versus you.
The thing that I wanted to get back to, we were talking about the idea of what happened with the common law, and you said that, at this point we've already gone through the common law thing, and we figured out a lot of stuff, and now we got really smart people who maybe now they're going to be all followers, adherents of Ayn Rand. Fine, whatever. Okay. The fact is that unless you continue to do comparison, you cannot find improvements in new realities that come around. We don't know what the law would be for the internet until we had the internet. Okay?
Right.
Obviously.
And unless you have a competing system where different ideas of how to legislate, not how to legislate, but how the rules should work in such a system, you can't find the objectively most valid rule. Now, even in the case where you find one that is actually, this is most, like, for example, the idea that if you steal something that you have to repay the person twofold, and plus the cost of the prosecution. This is a common law concept that occurred after a period of time where they were figuring out, all right, well, what is it, the actual, cost-benefit analysis of all these different things. And so after a series of trial and error, they eventually determined that was about where the best solution is. Well, maybe we find out that the most effective way of dealing with these types of things is to have, a different system that includes some punitive measure that lasts for a longer period of time. We don't know. We know that there are going to be potentially different options that are going to present themselves based upon innovations. And innovations are always going to be changing. So we cannot assume that we can make some set of laws that are going to be objectively valid for the next year or the next year or the next year, because innovations in technology and innovations in social norms happen.
Okay, but
the basis of a legal system has to be restitution.
No, but hold on though. Like, I'm not disagreeing with the innovation aspect, but the principles would be the same. Like, the principle of protecting individual rights would not change. Like, the application would change.
I think you're using a little great man theory because you're saying, all right, we got this common law, which has worked out great. Let's take it and give this group of people the right to enforce or to not enforce. Let's use a nicer term. Give a group of people the right to ensure common law dominance. Let's say ensure this objective law to be dominant over land. Well, by ensuring that power in one party, you're creating a power imbalance. So it's not the Constitution or the objective agreements that actually rule the land. It's the actual enforcement arm that has the gun. So once you create that power arm, this guy goes, no, I'm wearing the badge of the state. I can tell you to stop or go inside or whatever. It's according to the law. It may not be, because the objectiveness of the law was washed away by the fact that now you have a custodian of it that's not versed in it. And he's just, yeah, he could be fired or something in your society.
Yeah,
but
a crooked cop, yeah.
It does. It does dilute, is what my point is. It dilutes the objectivity of it because you're having actual human beings apply it.
Well, okay, well, yeah, that would apply to every human action. So yeah, sure, like.
Except for in a free society where there's alternatives. So if I do poorly at my judging or at my bailiffing or whatever, or my cop job, there's other groups and there's other individuals that can step in. When you have a singleized monopoly on being even a military man, you know, yeah, he's defending, but he's over in some nation. If we had defense groups that, like, let's say BP said, you know, I'm afraid someone's going to invade my oil fields. I want a defensive military to go out in all the unclaimed land and just do some reconnaissance and get some information and look for anyone trying to build an invasion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, non-aggressive, just scouting or whatever. You could pay for that, and that defensive organization could go out. Now, if that defensive organization rapes someone because they had a lot of power, they had a group and they were able to rape some girl or something, and that got out, then that defensive organization would be faced to bear for that.
But hold on.
Whereas now, in a centralized society, when those things occur, when military men go overseas and rape people and do things disingenuously, there is no not only recourse mechanism because you have to petition the state for your own recourse against the state, but there's also a large incentive for all the rest of the market actors to defend the state because they're so reliant upon the state.
But just to be clear, BP can hire people to research things for them as long as they don't use force. Like, that's legal.
Of course,
that's legal now. That would be legal in a laissez-faire society. They can have people look out for their
But what those people
enemies.
do, and they're not doing that as much now because they have a fascistic relationship with a state. So they know that I have all this defense covered already.
Okay, but I would let's just say I wouldn't forbid that or whatever. Like sure.
Well, you would because you're creating monopoly. So all the best people that want to be defenders and want to be strategists, you know, military strategists and all that are going to go work for the biggest employer. They're going to all go work for the government.
But
so
why
distorting
why do
market
you
really badly.
why do you assume that the military would necessarily be very big? Yeah, okay, you're from America, but like it doesn't have to apply to every country that like they would have a bloated military, right? Like I can imagine countries having like something like Switzerland, for instance, where like, all the guys go into training a few weeks a year. They don't have the biggest army in the world. They still can defend themselves. So
what I'm concerned is isn't that the size of the military? You could have a tiny military, but it's from the state. And it's funded by voluntary tax dollars, but whatever, voluntary donations. But that military says, well, we're going to, go do some defensive maneuvers, whether it's here in this jurisdiction or they're over in some other nation doing it, and they violate someone's rights, whether they trespass on someone's land or they cut down a tree or something or break a fence trying to maneuver, and they say, well, we're doing defensive work for this military. We're not going to pay for that. We're not going to stop and worry about that. How would some small farm owner in Turkey take a claim against the United States military, even if it was 6,000 people, when it's essentially taking on an entire nation now? If it was a small little defense contractor, it'd be easy to go hire an attorney and sue them. But now you're making it going against a nation over a tort like that. You see the problem there?
Yeah, well, actually, I think this is specifically an area just like extradition of citizens where diplomacy would come in play, and I think probably there would be some deal between Turkey and the U.S. concerning military personnel, where there would be.
Hopefully there would be. Hopefully there would be diplomacy, but there wouldn't be recourse otherwise, is what you're saying.
Well, it's pretty difficult for Turkey to force.
The individual wouldn't be able to go get his own recourse, is what you're saying. There'd be no means for the individual to get his own remedy in your scenario. That's what I'm hearing. I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah, well, like, listen, like we're both idealists, right? So, like, I would love for the U.S. Government to have a policy where every time one of their soldiers fuck something up, they have like a recourse. It's like I would love that, but I'm not gonna say it would definitely be there in my society. Like, sure, I think it should be. I think if the military fucks up, we should compensate people. So I think there's room for that, but I'm not gonna like sell this pie in the sky story about a future capitalist state where everything would be perfect and this wouldn't happen. So, well, listen, guys, it's like 6 o'clock over at my side of the ocean. So.
And in fact, the show is actually past time, so we need to go wrap it up. So, I definitely thank you for coming on and discussing these things, and
it was nice, yeah.
Yeah, I think that one more thing that you might want to ponder is every single criticism that you have of the idea of a anarchist, polycentric law type of system. Imagine the worst actor, the person doing these worst acts. Imagine if they were the actual government doing those acts. How would that, you have less recourse.
So I get it.
Take a look at that and think about it. In any case, I do thank everybody for joining us today on the Voluntary Virtues After Hours show. My name is Robert Kruger. I'm your host, and you have a great evening. Thank you.
Could you send me this link also?